National Fishermen and Pacific Marine Expo are proud supporters of the Galley Stories podcast, as we make similar efforts to highlight the people and topics that define commercial fishing. You can see what that looks like in print and online all year long, as well as every November in Seattle when this community comes together at PME. Check out nationalfisherman.com and pacificmarineexpo.com to learn more.
Hey guys, before we get started on this episode, I wanted to thank National Fisherman Magazine and the Pacific Marine Expo for the partnership that we've been enjoying, and appreciation for the invitation and the booth to attend this event this year. Additionally, I got a lot of questions during the first day of Expo this year about how to support Galley Stories, as we do not have sponsorships. The answer to that would be patreon.com/Galley Stories. I'll put a link to it on this episode. With that being said, I would like to thank previous supporters that have really helped us get to where we are. Aldo Castillo, Daniel Hart, the late great Daniel Hart, Shyler Moe, Derek Hart, Emily, aka Lady, and Jesse Honor. And a special thanks to Garrett Riley from Spittin' Llama, as he's done all of my signage since we began this process and journey with Galley Stories. So again, thank you for your support. If you would like to support us, please become a Patreon. And with that, thanks for your generosity, and thanks for listening. And here we go.
Hello, and welcome to Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond, hosted by Mark Kaler. My name is Penka Jane, podcast deckhand and longtime listener. We'd thank you to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Here's today's catch.
Hello guys, and welcome to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of Bering Sea and beyond. I'm your host, Mark Kaler. Today we're down at Pacific Marine Expo doing another recording here. We've got Matt Bradley. A lot of you know him as a deckhand on the Northwestern. We'll let him tell his entire story though. So Matt, thanks for taking the time today to come down. And where were you born and what got you into commercial fishing?
I was born in North Seattle, and kind of what got me into fishing was working with Sig and Edgar Hansen. Used to get a half rack of beer to rig pots. And you get a half rack of beer at the end of the gear pile, and you might get $50-$100 at the end of the day. So we'd run shots of line and rig gear. And then, this is like 1988, maybe a little before that even. And me and Edgar were actually both working in the same restaurant together. He didn't want to be a commercial fisherman like his family, and so we worked together. And a few years went by, 89, 90, I took my first fishing job. So I at least had a little knowledge about tying knots and the pots, but what I didn't know what was in store for me, that's for sure.
What was the first fishing job?
The first fishing job I took was on the U.S. Dominator for a Pelio crab, $100 a day. And I only got paid for the days we fished. So if we did an 8-day trip, 10-day trip, and took 2 days into town, had to wait 3 days, 4 days to unload, I didn't get paid for those days. And I feel like I worked just as hard on the days that we were running back in or sitting on anchor. Those guys had me breaking ice and washing the boat and cleaning up and just general boat maintenance, but I didn't get paid for those days. So when we finished that season, Evan, the guy that was running the boat, said I did a good job and that he knew somebody just got injured on another boat, that I should go down and talk to that captain. So I went down to talk to John on the Pacific Viking and said, Evans told me to come down here. He said, go get your bag. We'll take you. And I went and did one trip of cod. It made like $900. And I was hooked, But even at that, I said, I got back home. I took the Pacific Viking back to Seattle. And I had decided at that point that I was never going to fish again. Like I did it. I didn't let my friends down for getting me the job. And I fulfilled both my contracts. I was good. And so somewhere in there, I took another job back in a restaurant, and I got that first paycheck, and it wasn't much money, but I was like, you know what, I think I'll try this again. And I went and fished for the Jazz Dads for a couple of years on the Western Viking, and then SIG finally hired me. So,
What year was that?
well, it had been 90-something. Yeah.
You mentioned the Pacific Viking. That'd be John Plager.
John Jastad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jan Jastad. He just passed away a couple of years back. I feel like all the old good old timers are
Isn't it?
yeah, gone now.
Certainly feels that way. So what was your first? You talked about the money on the first commercial trip, but how was your experience at it?
My first experience, like I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Like I flew up there with 2 pairs of jeans, 3 pairs of long socks, and a couple of flannels. And those guys are like, "Who packed your bag?" I was like, "My girlfriend." And they're like, "What is she trying to do? Kill you? She must not love you." And they took me to Alaska Ship Supply. By the time I was done, they just started piling hoodies and sweatpants and long johns and extra tough boots on the counter. I had like a $2,500 bill right there. I was already into the boat, my airfare plus $2,500 at Ship Supply. So that first experience of it all is, I'll be honest, it was kind of frightening, man. I mean, those guys were. I've never treated a greenhorn quite as bad as I got it. Like those guys threw fish at me, they demeaned me all day, and I just kept taking it. And that's, I guess that's part of the industry. It never really was going to make me cry or anything, but it's just part of how the deal was. And like once I was done with the season, I didn't want to go back. It was like I fulfilled the contract. I'd done what I came up there to do, and I knew fishing wasn't for me. And then somewhere in there, I was like, this cooking in restaurants kind of sucks, Maybe it's not so bad, And after a couple of seasons of making some pretty good money, it was really hard to go back,
So getting on to the Northwestern then in 1990, you were on there for a long time. What was some of those early days like?
The early days with SIG were quite insane. We didn't sleep. Man, it was rough. The industry was so much different than it is today. We were in derby days, and we would fly into Dutch Harbor, land, grab some provisions, and we'd go straight to Akutan. And we wouldn't see Dutch Harbor again unless we had a major breakdown. It'd just be Akutan, St. Paul. Back then there was 8-10 floaters, so sometimes you might go 2 months Opies, fishing Opies. You might go 2 months without putting your feet on land. You'd go out, do a 7-day trip, offload to the floater, they'd lower down some eggs, and you'd go back out. You got eggs and potatoes, and that was it. And those guys were so cheap. You had to buy your own candy bars. You wanted pop, you had to buy it yourself. The later years with SIG, things kind of changed a little bit. Having the camera crews on board, those guys they needed their granola and their fresh blueberries and stuff like that. So, like grocery shopping became like, it was like money was no object. And it's like, all right, now we're going to live like humans, not robots.
With the cooking background, did you get the cooking duties a lot?
Yeah, almost every boat I've ever been on, except for that first year, I've always been the cook. I like food and I'm super good at it. So, it's kind of funny with all these camera guys. Deadliest Catch is almost 20 years old. They just finished filming up your first 5 or 6 episodes, but the camera crews will be like, I want to go where Matt's at because we at least know we're going to eat good.
Well, since we're on the subject of food, and I've never asked this question on any podcast I've recorded, what's your favorite dish?
My favorite meal to make on the boat, tacos. I hate to say it, but they're just so easy and they run over. But like we get all our meat from Better Meats here in Seattle. Like a meat order is like $8-10 grand. We live like kings. Full prime ribs, 18 pounds, 22-pound turkeys. I'm making Thanksgiving dinner. I'll do like 3 turkeys in a season. The guys like the leftovers and whatnot. Throw a bird in the oven. Stews are always good just because they hold over, But when I cook, when we've had the camera crews, there's been like that last time with Jake, I think there was 11 people on the boat.
On the Saga?
On the Saga, you don't see everybody first year I was with Jake, you had Jonathan Hillstrand, his wife, his brother, Neil, and Neil's son. So there was 4 or 5 Hillstrands right there, plus the crew. And then Jake brought our good friend Tony Avellino up, who's actually a neurobrain surgeon. So yeah, and then they throw in the 2 camera guys. There were 11 people on that boat.
Wow.
A lot of bodies and 1 bathroom.
Is people sleeping on the floor?
Saga's got bunks everywhere. Yeah, almost everybody had a bunk. Jake even lost his boat. He got bunk. He gave his bunk up to Jonathan and his wife. He was down in the slums with me and the rest of the guys.
Okay. What's been your greatest experience fishing?
I think my greatest experience fishing is, I hate to say it, but part of this Deadliest Catch stuff. The notoriety that the TV show has given the industry is amazing, but it's also given me a platform to help recovering addicts. I really believe that's probably like the highlight of it all. Like the first 5 years of Deadliest Catch, it's kind of cool. Hey, Mom, look, that's what I do, you know.
Turn on the TV. Turn on the
TV. You can get a glimpse of what I do for a living, you know. And my kids, they're all older now, you know. They got to see a little glimpse into what Dad does. So that's been cool. But like the recovery aspect of it, I've always been super open about it. Whether I was clean or struggling or relapsed, it's always on my social media statuses, you know, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But I just celebrated 10 years. I think I got 10 years in a couple of months right now. So I think out of all of it, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just a dumb fisherman. But somewhere in it, people see us as blue-collar workers and can identify. We're just real humans doing a real job, a little more extreme than most, but somewhere in there I get to help some people. So that's been like my highlight of the TV show and my fishing stuff.
You know, on a previously recorded episode here at Expo, I had Landon Cheney. He spoke a lot about you and a lot about his recovery and your the fact that you were his sponsor, or you are his sponsor. And so since we're on the subject, let's talk about your addiction and your struggle of recovery.
You know, addiction's rampant in the fishing industry. It's rampant in the world right now, especially with all this fentanyl going around. But you know, like all my early years of fishing, it was a drug addict's dream. I hate to say it like this, but you could go up, make a pile of money, come home, blow through it, whatever. There was always another season to fish. You could always go fish halibut, cod, pollock, you know, black cod, hair crab, snails. I mean, there's the fisheries. You could always make a few bucks, and if you were homeless, which I was pretty much for so many years, I always had a place to live, eat, and sleep, and I was making money. And even if the boat wasn't making money, at least I was sheltered from the dangers of my addiction. And I can honestly say, you know, I might have used a few times in town, but I never used while we were fishing. Like, it just seems so forbidden to use narcotics while you're out there fishing, you know, or even a drink.
But you were an addict. How did you recover from those first few days on the boat? Was that a struggle?
Detoxing on the boat was always hell. I had some great guys behind me. You know, I hate to say it, they're super codependent. You know, like my crew would always be like, "Oh, Matt's just seasick." You know, I'd be puking my guts out for 3 days. You know, I had a full-blown heroin habit. You know, like, and sometimes I'd be like, "All right, you know, October's coming, time to knock this off." No Suboxone, none of these drug replacement things, not even methadone. I just quit cold turkey, enough to get back to the boat. And then, you know, I'd get back on the boat. The second week up there, I'm healthy again, or a little bit more healthy physically. I never fixed that spiritual void until the later years, when I started going to 12-step meetings and on to detox and gone to treatment a couple of times. And there was definitely a spiritual void that was missing in my life, you know? Yeah.
What about, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but with so many years in the industry, 1990. So you've got, what is it, 40?
Close to 40 years up there.
I mean, that's a lot. And I'm sure you've experienced a lot of scary times. Do you know the time that you were most fearful at sea?
Probably one of the scariest times ever coming in. We were in the pass coming into Akutan, and Sig said somebody's got to sit up here with me. I said, it was nautical, and it was on the side, and we had a full load of gear on, and I would sit on the port side and tell him when a big one was coming, and then he would navigate the throttle, maybe even tap the jog stick and try to steer us out of it. And we put that boat way more than a 45-degree roll. And at one point, Sig was, I don't even know how to describe it, but he's in the wheelhouse chair and I'm in the port side. He's on the starboard, and he was looking down at me. And when he said he was sorry, I thought that was it. He was like, "I'm sorry." That's all I heard. And I was like, "She's coming back." And he says, "I don't think so." And like everybody that was on the starboard side got thrown out of their bunks, kitchen cabinets opened. There was a ton of racket. And, everybody came upstairs after that. And we righted. But, I mean, it scared me pretty good. I really thought that was it for us. I think that is... and I've had some scary moments on deck where I've been washed around, got hit, just going to hook the pot up and get blasted by a wave and get shot all over the deck and think you're in the water because you're like so much water and you're soaked, and like all of a sudden you feel like you're swimming and all of a sudden you feel deck boards and you're like, oh shit, I'm still on deck. Thank you, Lord. Hurt, bruised, wet, but I'm still here, But I think coming in that time was, it was definitely one of the scariest moments up there. And I've seen a million scenarios, but that particular time, it always sticks out to me. It sure does.
How has your family handled 40 years of fishing?
Back to a little bit about that addiction piece of things, My mom always felt I was safer in one of the world's most dangerous occupations. She'd rather see me in jail or see me on a boat, She knew where I was and knew I was safe. A lot of heartache through that addiction years, and there was a lot of them. My kids, they've grown up, I do have some regrets about my time, man. I missed a lot of first steps. I missed a lot of school plays. Missed a lot, but somewhere in there, I've got one daughter that is graduated with her master's. She is now a high school teacher. My other girls I got 5 daughters. They're all doing pretty good, and they've had, I grew up poor white trash, man. Like my kids had more, they had name brand clothes. They had way more than I ever did. And they didn't have quite the struggles I did. So, for somewhere in there, I feel like good parenting, but I do miss a lot of years, man. Like being in the military, same thing. You're deployed. It's kind of like fishing. When's Dad coming home? 10 days? And then it's 30
Obviously,
days.
you didn't serve in the military, though, right?
No.
It sounds like you went straight on the boat.
Straight on the boat.
A lot of guys refer to, being on a boat with 5-6 people is a lot like that little unit, just like a military unit, and the fact of the camaraderie that's built.
My whole family's military background, so like my one brother, he took off, joined the service, and he made a pretty good career out of it for a number of years. But it's not much different, like the family aspects of it and the camaraderie on the boat. I've also, like I stayed with the Northwestern. There was a lot of times where we had crew members, Sig just embedded it in my head, stick and stay, make it pay. We might have a bad season where we didn't make no money, or maybe 2 of the crew members jumped off and went and did brown crab. They're chasing paper, and then that industry fell, or this industry fell, or that season. I've seen a lot of boat jumpers, you know. You meet a guy in Dutch Harbor and he's like, oh yeah, what boat are you on? And you tell him the vessel name and he's like, oh, I've been on the Sea Wind and the Seabrook, and 30 boats can't be wrong, bud. You suck at what you do, you know. I'm serious about that one. Just because you fished on a bunch of boats doesn't make you a great crew member, you know.
Well, you got to be a great crew member.
I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I know what I'm doing, you know. I'll never be that guy that jumps on a boat and says, you know, this is how we do it over here. This is the way you should do it. If you got 2-3 guys you're working with that have been on a boat 3 or 4 more years, that's the way things are done. I just do it. I'm not here to change things, you know. And I've done it. I'd fish an OP season on Northwestern, and I'd jump on and go trawl with Nels on the Flying Cloud, or jump back on the PV, or, you know, go finish a pollock season up, a cod season up, trawling. You know, I bounced around a little bit, you know. I didn't always get full share on the Northwestern. It took a lot of years I went from $100 a day on that Western Viking to half share to the Northwestern for $150 a day. That only lasted one season. And then I got half share for a couple of years, a couple of seasons, you know.
So fishing's provided a lot for you, though, sounds like.
Yeah. Fishing has definitely provided a pretty good life, you know. At the end of the day, no regrets.
And it sounds like your biggest takeaway from it, or the biggest gain, is the platform.
At the end of the day, yeah. I think some of, you know, like worth ethic, you know. My wife trips when I'm working around the farm. So, hey, I mean, I know she knows what I do for a living, but she's like, you have split wood, you've ran the tractor, you've done this, are you tired yet? Nope.
I still got some more to do.
It's not dark.
Is that busy work, though? That keeps your mind off some of that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Idle hands.
Idle hands, the devil's workshop. Believe that.
Yep. So Matt, if you were going to give final words to wrap this up, what would they be?
Stay in school, kids.
So, right.
Fishing, the next endangered species is definitely the commercial fisherman.
Boy, it's come down a lot.
Our fishing industry it's not what it once was, and at the end of the day, you know, like the canneries and the corporations are going to take this over. I really believe that. There's not enough crab. I've always said we have one of the most sustainable fisheries in the world, and I still believe that. It's heavily regulated. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a closure for the last 2 years of red king crab, right? They're protecting everybody by doing that. But, you know, I just see the canneries. It used to be a gentleman's fishery, and you went to the IFQ, instead of a 50-50 split, it went to 60-40, and then you got guys that'll do it for even less, and thinking catching more crab means more money. It's I don't know, ego. So, yeah, that shit's scary.
Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover? Or?
Thank God I got fallback programs.
You know, one more question for you. You know, you're Landon's sponsor.
Yeah.
I know that you were Nick's sponsor. How many guys do you sponsor?
Right now, I've only got 2 sponsees. As far as the 12-step program does, I would probably have a couple more. I got another one that just overdosed and passed away. So, you know, it happens, you know. Can we swear on this thing? You know, fuck around and find out. I mean, that's recovery for me it's 100% life or death, especially with the narcotics that are going around today. You know, and the men and the guys that I mentor through 12-step or through my social media platforms, being honest and open about my personal addiction. If it helps somebody, man, then that's great.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a very insidious disease, you know. So maybe you don't pass away, maybe you just live miserable, you know. And the fishing industry is, you know, it's full of it. It is, and it's everywhere. It really is. I hate to put it just on our industry, but, you know, work hard, play harder. And that was a mentality of mine for too many years. Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks for taking the time today, brother.
Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for listening to Galley Stories. We hope you like what the net brought in. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Whether you like it or not, we're not fishing for compliments. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter too, and reach out to us at galleystories@gmail.com.